Yes, we have music.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the project hearing of the Plymouth School Board for, what is it? February. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'm going to be reading from the script because this is a project hearing and I don't want to leave anything out that might be important. So the first item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project and preliminary hearing on the proposed construction project. If you're interested in speaking at the hearing, please make sure you've signed the sign-in sheet, which is right out there by the door, which should include your name and address. And after a presentation by the administration and advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. At the hearing, we will ask that each person limit their comments to 3 minutes and that the topic be limited to the proposed project under consideration. The notice of this project hearing was published as legally required on January 20th, 2022 in the Pilot News. At this time, I'll ask our superintendent, Mitch Mayhorter, to explain the purpose of this hearing.
And I will stick with the script as well so that I don't mess it up. Pursuant to Indiana Code 20-26-7-37, before a school corporation may spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building that will be financed by a lease or bonds, it must hold a public hearing at which explanations of the potential value of the project to the school corporation and community are given. These public hearings and the adoption of resolutions are the very beginning of the legal process. The resolutions establish the maximum financial terms for the proposed project.
And we'll now hear from Mitch again about the process of determining and communicating to the project to the community and the need for the project.
And I am going to have some help here with Dave Show, because Dave did a lot of this, the background. We started with, we wanted to do some testing. So we did some air quality testing, and we also got Barton Vilma involved to do a study. Do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, we conducted over 100 air quality tests in the district, and we did radon testing. We looked for molds, different things like that. The tests came back, a couple minor considerations as far as one with the radon piece, which we're working on changing HVAC to address that. And so we felt that we did a good job of trying to make sure what the current needs of the district might be. And then with our facility plan, our long-term plan in place, and with working with Barton Vilma, we dialed in and tried to pinpoint a list of projects that the district could benefit and save energy on and things like that. And so we committed to a facility study, and we showed the findings for that study at the last school board meeting. Mitch, would you like me to go into some detail?
If you could go into some of the projects that we are looking at, that would be, I think that would be something that the public would like to hear.
So, the list of recommendations from Barton Vilma was for Plymouth High School. We have large building pumps that circulate heating and chilled water for the heating and air conditioning systems. It was recommended that we replace and upgrade those by the age of those units. We dialed in and found that our gym floor at the high school was now almost 50 years old, and so we didn't have any standings left in that to extend the life on that out, so that was a replacement. And then we were looking at replacing the air handling system in the gym, and that would be in addition to add cooling to the space as well. The high school, the main office air handler is original to the building in 1961, so it was time to upgrade that. There's an electrical equipment from the back by where the old pool would have been, that was, right, 1974-ish, that vintage, so it's time to upgrade that. The domestic hot water heater and storage tank for the building, we're looking to upgrade and replace plumbing fixtures throughout the building, in the 1961 and 74 portions of the building, a renovation to the art room, and we have a fixed skylight in the media center that we wanted to get replaced as well. And so that was what we were looking at the high school. Riverside, to gain some efficiency there, we were going to add some VFDs to some cooling tower pumps, and we have not done much in the way of plumbing and fixture replacement in that building since it was built, just maintenance. I'm looking to cut our water consumption. We're one of the large consumers in the city. Most everyone ahead of us produces a product for sale, and so we need to do a better job of being a good steward of that resource and cut that consumption. We also had a skylight at Riverside, and there was some work to the gutters there that need to happen on that metal roof. Jefferson, we have an old air handler up there that's original equipment to the gym, and we were going to replace that. We have some temperature control valves. A lot of that building still runs on an air compressor over pneumatic, so we're looking to eliminate the air compressor and save energy through more efficient strategies of temperature control. We're looking at a playground upgrade and surfacing at that school to make it more accessible, and we have the need for our intercom system at that building to be replaced. Webster Elementary, we have to recontrol existing air handlers, which is also air over pneumatic control, so to upgrade that, we have a couple of R22 condensing units, which for air conditioning that we want to try to get replaced. They're nearing end of life. We have some carpet replacement in the corridors, the media center and main office areas. We keep up pretty well on the budget with classroom replacements, but some of those large areas can get pretty costly, so we try to incorporate that in the project. Washington Discovery Academy was looking at new HVAC throughout. It would require new drop ceilings when we replace the HVAC in the building. We have only one chilled water pump, so if that were to go out, we would want a second unit for redundancy of the system. Domestic water lines and restroom fixture again at that building. There would be a carpet replacement, a new intercom. Those were the list of projects that Barton Covilma would be assisting with primarily. Then we have, as part of this, we have a solar project at 2 buildings. That would be a system at Riverside Intermediate and one at Washington Discovery Academy. We have a tentative approval from NIPSCO to proceed on those. I'm waiting for the formal documentation to come back on that. But tentatively right now those look good. Those were at $1,500,000. Those account for about 30% of the electric for the entire district, what they would be capable of producing, which would off-grid power. So that was kind of a great opportunity for us. Then there's a list of projects that are outside of the solar project and outside of the Barton Covilma things, which, let me pull that up here real quick. So at Washington Discovery Academy, I had site upgrades, which was going to be sidewalk replacement, addressing some exterior lighting and asphalt replacement. I have an estimate of about $550,000 for that. At Webster, we have some playground replacement that we're looking at. I have an estimate of about $150,000 to make that a more accessible with surfacing and a new unit. The high school, I have an auxiliary gym air handler that's original equipment to the building. That I have an estimate of about $200,000 for that. We kind of held back in the building project at the new Lincoln. We didn't complete a couple of aspects of that, which were, there was some concrete work that we wanted to put in place around the football field / soccer field for their sports program. We were trying to make sure we were on budget throughout with the old building, and so we kind of held back on that. There was some lighting to light that field at the new junior high, and some concrete work where we would place bleachers. I had an estimate of $125,000 for that. The service center, there was an asphalt replacement on that one, which would be some additional asphalt work and milling and replacement of that lot at the service center. So I had a total with the solar project. So the other, not in the solar or the Barton Covilma work, I had $1,375,000 for those projects. And I've totaled it out at $10,484,000 for the estimate for all projects all in.
That is leftover money from 18 that we're using, ESSER money, and then also the new GEO.
Yeah.
So that's how that is covered.
And I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have regarding the facilities.
I think those would come in
During the hearing.
public hearing.
Okay, in the hearing, okay.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
We have Baker Tilly here, our municipal advisor, to tell us how the proposed project will be financed, and as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer. Thank you for coming.
I'll pass out copies.
Thank you. And this is Lisa
Yes,
and Lindsay,
correct.
the Lisa and Lindsay show.
Well, thank you for having us this evening. So we'll talk a little bit about the GEO bond financing. So if you'd like to turn to page 2 on the handout that Lindsay passed out. This is an illustration of the school corporation's existing debt service payments that you make. So I'd just like to draw your attention to, 21 and 22. You see that your debt service payments are level. And then you see a drop in debt service in budget year 2023. Another thing that I'd like to point out on this chart is that black line that goes across the bars. In 2021, this represents your estimated debt service tax rate for the debt service fund. You can see in 2021, it was at about 58 cents, and we take a small dip in 2022. So what we're proposing this evening with the GEO bond is that, you have the opportunity now to level out that debt service and bring the debt service tax rate back up to the 2021 level. So the next page just shows you what's going on in this chart in numerical version. So I won't go through all of those numbers, but we'll turn to page 4. And this is a schedule of the school corporation's general obligation bonding capacity. This illustrates just the maximum amount that you can take out in a GEO bond by Indiana state statute. And you can see the result of that is about $5.6 million. So that's the amount we're proposing to finance for some of those projects. And if we take a look at page 5, this is a summary of the financing plan for the school corporation. So we're estimating that we'll borrow about $5.615 million, and the school corporation can pay that back in a little over 5 years. The estimated total interest would be about $320,000, and we're looking at a tax rate impact of $0 over the 2021 tax rate. So like I mentioned before, we're going to kind of adjust that to bring it back up to the 2021 levels. And then the final slide kind of illustrates that information. Oops, There we go. So, as you can see, in 2021, you had a certain tax rate. It took a small dip in 2022, and there are various factors that caused that dip. But we can bring that back up to the 2021 level for next year. And even though you see the green bars that represent the new payments of the GO bonds go a little bit higher than what you were paying before, we can still keep that tax rate level because of, the growth in net assessed value and some other factors. So that, pretty much represents the GO bond financing. Do you have any questions?
So, if there were a need to borrow again for some catastrophe,
Sure.
how does that work?
Well, we
school?
We do have other tools, and, the school corporation can make some decisions. You can borrow again and decide, well, maybe we need to inch up that debt service tax rate a little bit, but, you know your community better than we do, so that would be a decision you'd have to make. But we can also do some things like to capitalize interest, or even if we needed to do some bond anticipation notes, things like that. There are different tools in our belts that we can help you with that. Absolutely.
I think another question that we talked about in the last time we met was, I know Davis said in 2026 we need to start really looking at roof projects and things like that. So this process, we can start again when? We have to take a few years off, right? We're not going to borrow every year.
Right.
So when is that next time when we're looking at those roof projects, when can we look at that?
So if you look at the chart in 2026, the bars remain level, then we take a dip in 2027. So we could easily say that you could start the financing process again in 2026 to borrow some more money for projects and start paying that back in 2027.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you. Right now, we will open the public hearing, and remember, if you'd like to speak, please sign in on the sheet, which is right outside the door. As I mentioned earlier, we ask that you state your name and address and limit your comments to the proposed project and financing. And keep any comments to 3 minutes and avoid being repetitive if possible. And do we have the sign-in sheet out there? I need to get it. Thank you.
You have a sign-in sheet, but it appears to be blank.
Oh, there's that one on there. All righty. Well, thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak on the project? No? Okay. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate your time and interest in the future of our community. Please note that this is just the first step in the legal process. The board will continue to work with the administration and its professionals to look for efficiencies to conserve tax dollars while meeting our educational needs. Jeff, could you please summarize the project resolution?
Certainly. So the first resolution you have to consider tonight is the project resolution, which is required when a school is planning to spend more than $1 million per building. It contains estimated hard and soft construction costs, the costs of issuance, and it establishes the total project cost. And it also contains the estimated tax impact that you already heard about.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the recommendation. Could I have a motion and second to adopt the project? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the project resolution? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Jeff, could you please summarize the preliminary bond resolution?
Yes, so now that you've adopted the project resolution, the next one is the preliminary bond resolution to pay for the project. This resolution states the project cost, the maximum interest rate, and other financial terms such as when the first, or how much the first interest payment will be, the date it's due, and the maturity dates of the bonds.
Okay. Could I have a motion and second to adopt the preliminary bond resolution?
So moved.
Okay. All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mitch?
Yeah, so the next part is consider the proposal for services. And in your packet, you have a list of the services from Barton Pavilma. And I am asking the board, recommending to the board that they pass this so we continue our work with Barton Pavilma.
Okay. Candy? This next
You need to
one.
vote on that one.
Okay, yes.
Oh, okay,
Sorry about
okay.
that. That wasn't in the packet.
No. Could I have a motion and second to adopt the proposal for services?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, now on to adopting the reimbursement resolution.
Yes, the next resolution is to, related to reimbursing ourselves for any expenses that we would be paying out front, before the bond gets closed and we get the actual finances in hand. So, and it's just prior to the project, anything that we can spend, that we have to spend on it before the closing.
Okay. All right. Could I have a motion and second to adopt the reimbursement resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion or questions for Candy? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And that concludes our hearing. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ladies, for coming.
Thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
very much.
Okay, we'll move into, does anybody need a break? We'll move into our regular meeting. Okay, is everyone ready? Okay. Opening, setting of agenda for the meeting. Are there any additions to the agenda for tonight's meeting? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Audience participation on agenda items. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to agenda items?
For Prior Plymouth Education Association, item 3.8, new and revised policies and guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, thank you. Remind me when we get to there, okay? The consent agenda, we'll now consider the consent agenda. Are there any items that you want to pull out? No? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Melissa, I would want to make one comment. We have not met since Coach Barron has resigned and moved on, and I certainly want to, on behalf of the school corporation, thank him for his dedication, contributions, and wish him all the best in future endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then we also have a couple of retirements,
Yeah.
Wendy
Yeah.
and William.
Yeah.
And we would definitely want to thank them for their contributions and dedication. And I'm going to have to talk to Wendy because she didn't ask me. But I wish them all the best.
Thanks, Larry. I appreciate your words. You're the elder statesman of this, so we appreciate how you eloquently say all that. Okay. Business transactions, 3.1.
As mentioned in the project hearing, our plan is to put a solar array at Washington Discovery. and Riverside Intermediate using part of the proceeds from the potential 2022 GEO bond. I recommend to the board that we proceed in advertising the bids to complete the solar projects at both of those schools.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. 3.2, consider equitable education solutions agreement.
Yes, Equitable Education Solutions engages partners in a needs assessment system which leads school teams from the district to the classroom level through a process of data analysis and discussion that compares their current state to their desired state. We would like to partner with EES to do this type of strategic planning to enhance what is going well and improve the areas we need to improve upon. I recommend the approval of the contract between PCSC and EES.
Okay. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All right, is there any discussion or questions for Mitch? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I would like to say it will be paid for out of the grant.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Sorry. You might want to know that.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. 3.3,
Yes, this is not an action item, just more informational. It is a math adoption year, and we are providing notice that we are beginning the process to evaluate various math curriculums. A math committee has been formed with representations from every level in order to bring varied perspectives. We will select 3 vendors and will have the materials available for district and public review in the coming month. We will be adopting a pre-K curriculum this year. The pre-K team has reviewed materials from many vendors and are currently in the process of selecting 3 for the district and public review. These materials will be made available in the coming months as well. That's all I have for now.
okay, and it's not an action item.
It is not.
Alrighty. 3.4, adopt transfer student capacity and deadline for 2022-23.
Correct. Each year, the state makes each school district declare their intentions on the acceptance of transfer students. The intentions of the corporation are presented to you this evening, and if accepted, will be posted on the school website. In summary of the document, Plymouth schools will pick up to 325 students, transfer students at each grade level through the 8th grade, and an unlimited amount at each grade in the high school. The last day transfers will be accepted will be June 1st of 2023. I recommend the approval of the capacity and deadline for transfer students in the document as presented.
Okay,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion or questions? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Item 3.5, consider amendment to the PCSC Students Handbook.
Yes, the current language in the school handbook adopted by the board states that PCSC will have no more than 3 consecutive days of e-learning, at which point days will be made up using other designated days. Since we did not assign designated makeup days in our calendar, and there is not a desire for tacking these days on at the end of the year by the PEA or by the administration, I would like to strike this language from the handbook and remove it from the website. Therefore, I recommend the removal of the language in the handbook, limiting the number of consecutive e-learning days.
Okay. For the recommendation, is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right. Motion carries. 3.6, consider revisions to the classified conditions of employment.
Yes, so in light of what Larry mentioned, Wendy's retirement, we figured that there is a need for a little bit more intense knowledge for the human resource in a corporation this size. So we figured we had to up our game a little bit. So that's why we've changed this to human resource specialist, bumped up the salary a bit for a beginner. Wendy was within this range, so don't think that we were being rude to her. But we just wanted to up our game for someone beginning. Right, so we've done that, and then we're going to be removing from the teachers, the union. Basically, it used to be like a athletic supervisor, what was it called?
Athletic director.
Director, thank you, athletic director. And Lincoln and Riverside do not really have an athletic director, but they do have secretaries that help the athletic trainers and the athletic directors. And we had agreed that we will be moving this to the classified conditions instead of keeping it in with the union because they're classified positions, basically. So we kind of took that stipend and split it, and now we put it into classified conditions. So, and done that. And then the secretary she is secretary for Dave Schultz and for Brandon. And this year, she has had to do a lot. There's been a lot more, and there's a lot more required of her. So we wanted to move that to a full 12-month position because they're busy in the summer just as much as during the school year. And it's just more feasible for that. And I think there was just but on the same token, when we were creating some of the positions, the educational data support specialist, the person that actually took the position said, hey, I really don't need to be year round. We can do this job in this fashion. So we're reducing this person. So we're kind of trading off. And it was very good of her to come to us and be honest about it. She said, so that's what we was here. And I think there was just one correction on a cafeteria. We missed a little bit of an error on assistant head cooks. They had 185 and it should have been 186. And then their hours were incorrect. That shows all those, yeah.
All right, we'll get it on the table. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. Is there any discussion? Is this the one you wanted to speak to, Laura?
3.8.
Oh, 3.8. Okay. All right. Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Item 3.7, consider resolution 2022-2 to void checks.
Yes. Indiana Code 5-11-10.5-2 provides all warrants or checks drawn upon public funds of a political subdivision that are outstanding and unpaid for a period of 2 or more years as of the last day of December of each year are void. So such checks are to be receipted back into the funds upon which the checks were originally drawn and removed from the list of outstanding checks. These individuals have been contacted regarding a situation in which no response was received. Therefore, checks that are outstanding for 2 or more years are voided and receipted into the fund of origin and are listed on Exhibit A attached. And you can see this listing is from every building. And the total comes to $995.88. Ask your permission to proceed with voiding this check.
All right.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. 3.8, new and revised policies and guidelines, first reading.
Yes, this is the first reading of the Neola policies for volume 34, number 1. This volume has 28 revisions to current policies, 1 replacement policy, and 1 new policy. The updates are deemed necessary to comply with changes in the law, both state and federal. And I would recommend the approval of the first reading of the Neola policies presented.
I don't think we approve, we just let it go, right? We just acknowledge.
First reading doesn't require any action.
Yeah.
Okay.
But do you have comments?
Yes, Board of Higher Plymouth Education Association. There are a couple new policies within the first readings that PEA believes falls under mandatory items of discussion, including the one on New Indiana Course Access Program, or ICAP, in which it talks about a mentor being assigned to students. And this has not yet been discussed at the corporate level. It was just first brought up at our building level yesterday as it was seen on board policy. Question and point would be the mentor. As we're looking at, it says that a mentor will be assigned to students, and that mentor is responsible for helping to advise the student as well as make sure their experience is successful. And while that sounds good, keep in mind teacher shortage and limitations, and the question is, we're adopting these policies because Neola's throwing them our way, but do they fit our corporation? Especially when, right now, for instance, our Spanish students who are on ICAP classes don't have a regular teacher in the classroom. It's a sub after sub after sub. So who will be that mentor? Because it's not the guidance counselor according to this reading. It's not the outreach person from ICAP. So who will that be? That needs to be very clear. That is one new item.
Laura, can you tell me what policy that is?
That is, I'm looking at administrative guidelines, but the number should be the same, 2370.03.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other new policy is the use of social media. That would be administrative guidelines 7544, as this relates to curriculum. And again, has not been quite any there hasn't been any communication to this or discussion with PEA on it. Looking at it for, a brief moment, this is something that will definitely need to have staff awareness and staff training. So 2 questions come to my mind. One, knowing that these fall under the mandatory items of discussion, should that happen before the first reading? Or do we qualify and meet the criteria of the law as long as we have it before the vote? And 2, we'd like to talk about it.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
We will gladly talk with you about any of those.
Great. And anytime when these come up, we appreciate it because we usually are not aware of it until it's posted on the board.
Right.
Would be the obligation of putting on the discussion agenda ahead of time.
That'd be great. And we will do a better job of that.
Thanks, Laura. We have a motion and a second, or we don't even have to do it.
I messed up.
Never mind.
So,
Okay,
my bad.
now we're down to superintendent's monthly remarks.
Okay. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank the Feed the Children's Store for their generous donation of over $500 to the school for this past month. We are grateful for their contribution, and I think that was a recurring one because I think they were on. I mentioned them in the last meeting as well. We will be e-learning tomorrow and continuing to watch the weather each day to see what's going to happen. And there are so many people that are involved in these decisions that I want to thank, everywhere from all the directors that work here, Ted, Dave, Brandon. They all are a big part of their operation to make these things happen. I know Dave is going to spend probably the next 3 or 4 days trying to keep the pavement clear, and it's going to put in a lot of hours, so that is greatly appreciated. And so everybody does a really good job of making this work. Teachers doing their e-learning plans and things like that. Just appreciate all the people that have a part in this. So with that, that's all I have.
Next meeting date?
Next meeting date
March
is
1st.
March 1st.
Of the fall?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Audience participation on agenda items. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to an agenda item? No. All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.